On today's video, I will discuss about ethics. We will address the question, what is an ethics? The term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which means custom or character. Ethics is a branch of philosophy that studies the rightness or wrongness of a human action. It is concerned with questions of how humans ought to act in the search for a definition of right conduct and a good life. For this reason, the attempt to seek the truth through the aid of reason is the traditional goal of ethicists. It must be noted, however, that there is no single absolute definition of ethics. This is because ethics as a discipline is constantly evolving as a result of a change in sociocultural and political context. For example, in the Greek tradition, ethics was conceived as relating to the concept of the good life. Thus, the ethical inquiry during this time was directed toward discovering the nature of happiness. In fact, Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics does not only present a theory of happiness, but also provides ways in which happiness is attained. Now, centuries later, a quite different orientation was introduced by the Judeo-Christian tradition. In this ethical tradition, the ideals of righteousness before God and the love of God and neighbor, not the happy or pleasant life, constitute to the substance of ethics. Indeed, if we make an effort to reconcile these views, we are faced with a difficult task of defining the relationship between doing what is right and being happy. Again, it is for this reason that we cannot have an absolute definition of ethics. The theoretical study of ethics is not normally something that many people would regard as being necessary in order for them to conduct their everyday activities. In place of systematically examined ethical frameworks, most people instead carry around a useful set of day to day rules of thumb that influence and govern their behavior. Commonly, these include rules such as it is wrong to steal, it is right to help people in need, and so on. But sometimes the vicissitudes and complexities of life mean that these simple rules are sometimes put to the test. Consider the idea that it is wrong to kill. Does this mean that capital punishment is wrong? Is it wrong to kill animals? Is killing in self-defense wrong? Is the termination of pregnancy wrong? Is euthanasia wrong? If we try to apply our everyday notions of right and wrong to these questions, straightforward answers are not always forthcoming. We need to examine these questions in more detail, and we need theoretical frameworks that can help us to analyze complex problems and to find rational, coherent solutions to those problems. While some people attempt to do this work individually for themselves, philosophers attempt to find general answers that can be used by everyone in society. It is also important to note that ethics is not the same with morality, although many philosophers believe that the terms can be used interchangeably. This is because the ethics denotes the theory of right action and the greater good, while morality indicates practice that is rightness or wrongness of a human action. In other words, ethics undertaking the systematic study of the underlying principles of morality. Hence, it is interested primarily in the illustration of a more general problem and the examination of underlying assumptions in the critical evaluation of moral principles. On the other hand, morality is more prescriptive in nature. It tells us what we ought to do and exhorts us to follow the right way. According to Terence McKenna, Moral is characterized as an ungoverned rational enterprise, whose object is to equip people with a body of norms that make for peaceful and collectively satisfying coexistence and facilitating their living together and interacting in a way that is productive for the realization of the general benefit. For example, a religious leader may ask his followers to be good at all times. In this way, a moralist may want to keep alive the values he considers to be worthwhile, and to improve the moral quality of the community where he belongs. Hence, morality at the very least aims to guide one's action by reason and gives equal weight to the interests of each individual affected by one's decision. Indeed, this gives us a picture of what it really means to be a morally upright person. And so, we may conclude that ethics is the science of morals, while morality is the practice of ethics. During the mid 20th century, according to Sumner, a certain theory in the methodology of ethics has gradually become more and more widely accepted by British and American philosophers. According to them, there are two ways of doing ethical inquiry, namely normative ethics and meta ethics. Normative ethics is prescriptive in nature. It seeks to set forms or standards that regulate right and wrong or good and bad conduct. This may involve articulating the good habits that we should acquire, the duties that we should follow, or the consequences of our behavior in others. Hence, normative ethics morally attempts to develop guidelines or theories that tells us how we ought to behave. For example, Immanuel Kant claimed that an act is morally right if it is done for the sake of duty, is an example of a normative ethics. Metaethics, on the other hand, is descriptive in nature. According to Sumner, metaethics is allegedly constituted at least in part by questions of the meanings of the various ethical terms and function of ethical inferences. Hence, if a normative ethical inquiry is evaluative and prescriptive, metaethics is analytical and descriptive. It aims to understand the nature and dynamics of ethical principles. It asks questions about the nature and origin of moral facts, as well as the way we learn and acquire moral beliefs. For example, if normative ethics urges us to do good at all times, metaethics asks the question, what is good? For sure, if a moral philosopher attempts to address the question, what is good, what is justice, why should I be moral, then that moral philosopher doing meta ethics. In the course of the development of ethics, applied ethics became its third major type. As its name suggests, applied ethics is the actual application of ethical or moral theories for the purpose of deciding which ethical or moral actions are appropriate in a given situation. Applied ethics is usually divided into different fields. First, we have business ethics. It deals with ethical behavior in the corporate world. Next, we have biomedical and environmental ethics. It deals with issues relating to health welfare and the responsibility we have toward people in our environment. Next, we have the social ethics. It deals with principles and guidelines that regulate corporate welfare within societies. Finally, the difference between the three types of ethics can be illustrated in the following situation. A police officer shoots a terrorist who is about to blow up a crowded shopping mall. The act of the police officer is morally wrong according to metaethics because it is always wrong to kill, and it was known that killing in itself is intrinsically wrong. However, if the police officer does not shoot the terrorist, many innocent people will die or get injured. Though the police officer act may be wrong, the adherents of normative ethics say that it is the right thing to do in this particular situation, because not doing so will result in the death of so many people. The action might be morally correct. Finally, the applied ethics may say that the police officer is just doing his best to fulfill his duty, that is, to protect innocent lives as possible. Alright, that's all for today. Please answer the following questions. Have a nice day.